Cervical cancer is dangerous because it's sneaky, right? You can't see your cervix. It's really hard to actually even feel your cervix. So you could be developing precancerous cells or even a cancer and not know it's there. So unfortunately, the majority of cervical cancer is asymptomatic, which is what makes it hard to detect if you're not coming in for routine checks. So all of this highlights how important it is to see your physician, your care provider, or your OBGYN for care.
Today's topic is a very important one. It's about what every woman needs to know. Let's talk about cervical cancer. This episode was actually requested by a friend who wanted to better understand the causes and symptoms of cervical cancer. Like many women, she feels paranoid whenever she experiences symptoms like unusual bleeding or discomfort. And honestly, I can relate to that. Knowing the signs and what to do can help ease those fears and potentially can save lives. As a cancer survivor, I want to share not just the medical facts, but also my personal journey. I hope that this episode not only informs you, but also reminds you to prioritize your health. Let's start with the symptoms.
But if a patient is going to have symptoms, they would be the following: bleeding after intercourse, painful intercourse, especially if it's new and painful, a sensation of pelvic pressure or fullness or pain, or increased vaginal discharge.
Cervical cancer can be sneaky, and in the early stages, it may not show any signs at all. But here are the common symptoms to watch for. So first is unusual bleeding. This includes bleeding between periods, after sex, or after menopause. Then another is the unusual discharge. It might smell different. It can be thicker than normal, or it may look unusual. Pelvic pain or discomfort, especially during intimacy or at random times. And then we also have another, which is for the pain or difficulty urinating and frequent urination. Leg pain. Obviously, I don't need to expound this or explain further. Constant fatigue, like when you're always feeling tired. And weight loss too. Now, I'm lucky that I haven't experienced the others except for bleeding. But here, what I wanted to emphasize is that you might not have all these symptoms. Just like me, I'm quite lucky because I never get to experience all of the other symptoms aside from bleeding. So you may never experience any symptoms at all in the early stage. That's why regular screenings like pap smears are so crucial. It's very important. Let me just share my experience. When I first noticed my unusual bleeding, I brushed it off. It didn't seem serious. It was minor and not very frequent at first. And I thought I was healthy. And I had other things to take care of, like work. It was never a priority. So I delayed my checkup, thinking it wasn't urgent. And my husband Paul actually urged me to have a check. And so I did. And the bleeding became heavier, lasted longer, and started coming more often. That's when I finally went to the doctor. And things escalated so quickly. Eventually, it got to the point where I could barely carry anything. I remembered when I was working, I was trying to help carry some boxes. And after that day, I actually bled more. And I want to be honest with you. I wish I hadn't waited. Even though I did not delay my checkup for too long, but, few days, weeks, or a month, it will actually make a difference. You never know how fast cancer can spread or how quickly a tumor can grow inside your body. So if you're noticing unusual symptoms, don't wait. Have yourself checked, and that should be your priority. So now let's also discuss about the causes and risk factors of cervical cancer. The most common cause is HPV or human papillomavirus. HPV or human papillomavirus. Did I say it right? Never mind. It is a virus that spread through intimate skin-to-skin contact. But it's not the only factor. And it's not always clear why some people develop cervical cancer and while others don't. When I was in China, I noticed that many women are actually diagnosed with cervical cancer that were older, past the age of being sexually active. And there's actually a lot of them. It's about like 90% of the population in that whole floor where they only cater to patients with cancer in their reproductive system. So it could be your cervix or your uterus and other parts, of course, of your reproductive system. Mainly, and I think almost everyone that I've met, whom I call auntie, that's how we call them, even though we're not directly related, it's more of like just, a sign of respect. They mostly have cervical cancer. It wasn't always tied to HPV. And even if it was HPV, although sexual contact is the primary way HPV is transmitted, non-sexual transmission is also possible.
Anyone with a cervix is at risk for cervical cancer. And one of the most important things that I highlight, particularly to the parents of young girls and children, is that your child doesn't have to be sexually active. Your teenager doesn't have to be sexually active to get HPV, which causes cervical cancer. Other reasons that someone could get cervical cancer or that increase your likelihood of cervical cancer is if you're immunocompromised or if you're a smoker.
And it's also important to note that while HPV is often associated with sexual activity, it doesn't always result in cancer. Most HPV infections go away on their own, and only certain high-risk strains of the virus are linked to cancers like cervical, anal, and throat cancer. This showed me that cervical cancer isn't just about, sexual contact. It's the same logic you can apply with other cancers, like you can get lung cancers without even smoking or ever smoking in your lifetime. You can get throat cancer even if you've never smoked. You can get even, cancer of the liver even if you don't drink alcohol or you've never drunk one. Sometimes cancer just happens. It could be genetic, environmental, or something we don't fully understand yet. What's important is to let go of the stigma and focus on your healing, prevention, awareness, and the treatment. So now, speaking of prevention, let's talk about prevention.
So how do we prevent cervical cancer? Well, there are two great ways to prevent cervical cancer. And the good news is we actually cured cervical cancer with a vaccine. Vaccines are 99% effective in preventing cervical cancer. The problem is we've just done a bad job of getting them into all the people who are eligible. Reasons people still get cervical cancer are number one, that they weren't vaccinated, or number two, that they weren't able to get routine pap smears and HPV tests. As a gynecologic cancer doctor, I recommend that you get all your children vaccinated for HPV, regardless of sex. Oftentimes, parents will say to me, well, I have a boy. Should I get my boy vaccinated? Absolutely, you should. Boys should be vaccinated because not only are boys carriers of HPV, which can infect later partners, but boys are also susceptible to penile cancer, which is also caused by HPV. In addition to vaccines, women or patients with a cervix, age 21 or older, should get routine pap smears and HPV tests. So it's worth repeating that the best news about cervical cancer is that we've already cured it. Vaccines are 99% effective.
So here's what you can do to actually protect yourself. First, definitely get your screenings. In China, I think one of the reasons why most of the stages of cervical cancer, they get detected early because of the early screening. So at early stage, they can already, do something about it. So get your screening through pap smears and HPV test. It can catch abnormalities early, even before symptoms would occur. And then consider the HPV vaccine. It's safe and I heard it's 99% effective, especially if you're under the age of 45. Quit smoking. Smoking weakens your immune system and increases your risk of cancer. And of course, listen to your body. Don't ignore signs, no matter how small they seem. I learned it the hard way. And here I have a message for every woman out there watching this or listening to my podcast right now. So ladies, I know how easy it is to put everything else first. Work, family, errands, and we forget to take care of ourselves. I did that too. I thought that I was fine. I thought that my symptoms were minor and that I could delay my checkup for just a little while. But 1 month made a difference for me. Don't make the same mistake I did. You might think you're healthy, and maybe you are, but your health isn't something to gamble with. That work deadline or errand can wait. Your health cannot. And so to my friend who also requested this episode, I want you to know that it's okay to feel worried when you notice symptoms. But instead of letting that worry grow into fear, let it push you to take action. Because knowing what's going on with your body and catching any issues early can save your life. I was actually thinking what if I did not have myself checked? I did not take it seriously. I didn't know I was stage 4. I wouldn't know I was in stage 4. In that moment, I can barely walk already, and I don't know how late could it be, but it's a good thing I did check. It may not be that early, but at least, God gave me enough time to actually find out about it. So yes, do early check and never neglect any signs, any little signs you get. And so here's my final thoughts. Cervical cancer does not define us, but how we respond to it does. Whether you're experiencing symptoms, supporting someone, or just trying to learn more, remember that awareness and action are powerful. So thank you for tuning in today. If this episode resonated with you, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts or experiences. You never know, your story might inspire someone else to take action. Please don't forget to like this episode, and please do subscribe, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram at WandermomPh. And for more healing and self-growth content, you may also follow the Awakened Soul Circle on Instagram. Because remember, healing isn't just about the physical. It's about the totality of mind, body, and soul. You have the power to change your mindset and transform your life. Please do subscribe on the Awakened Soul podcast that's available in Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcast, and more. So make sure to follow us there for more episodes. Take care of yourself, and remember, your health is your power. Until next time, keep growing and stay empowered.